My fiancé wants me to prioritize his family over my sister in the hospital, but now he's spending Christmas in jail after punching his father. I'm writing this on a secondary account because my work friends follow my main one and they don't know this is happening. Also, I have to type this on my phone, so my spelling and grammar might be off. This is long, but I'll try to summarize as much as I can. I, 28F, got engaged in May to my partner of 7 years, R, 29M. Both of our families were very happy for us, and we had a family dinner 2 weeks after our engagement. R's brother lives 400 kilometers away and couldn't attend that dinner, so we decided to organize a separate dinner just for his family at the end of June, when his brother would be back for the weekend. That weekend had been planned long before our engagement, so he wasn't coming back just for the dinner. Earlier this year, my sister Kay, 32F, had a severe eye infection that quickly turned into an ulcer, leaving her cornea scarred and at high risk of perforation. She needed a corneal transplant, but her surgeon was away for 4 weeks, so she'd have to wait until he returned. However, her eye didn't hold out and it perforated, on the very day I was supposed to go to that family dinner with R's brother. Kay's wife was working and had her phone off, and our mom was out with our stepdad. So when Kay called me to tell me what was happening, I knew she'd be alone at the hospital. I immediately spoke to my boss, who let me leave early so Kay wouldn't be by herself. I texted R to tell him what was going on, and he replied sending his love to Kay, and reminding me about the dinner that night. I ignored his comment about the dinner, because it was the last thing on my mind. When I got to the hospital, they took me to a room where Kay was, and there were 3 doctors and 2 nurses rushing around to help her. They told me she needed emergency surgery to seal her eye or she'd lose it. The problem was there was no surgeon at that hospital who could do it, so she'd need to be transferred to another hospital an hour and a half away. They asked if she needed transport or if I could drive her. I said I'd drive. When we got to the other hospital, they said the surgery would be at 5:30 p.m. That's when I knew I wouldn't make it to the dinner, so I texted her to let him know. He blew up at me and basically told me to leave Kay at the hospital so her wife could pick her up after the surgery. At that point, we still hadn't been able to reach Kay's wife. I told him that wasn't going to happen and that I thought it was awful of him to even ask. I then messaged his mom to tell her what was happening. She was very understanding and told me to stay with Kay and update her on how the surgery went. She said a dinner could be rescheduled, but Kay's health couldn't. I also spoke with his brother, who was equally understanding. I stayed with Kay, the surgery was a success, and I got her home around 9 p.m. Her wife had ordered Chinese food and offered me some, which I gladly accepted since I hadn't eaten since lunch. I didn't get home until around 11 p.m., and R was already asleep. He was very distant with me for days afterward, and eventually we had a huge fight where he told me I should have put his brother and family before Kay. He said he was embarrassed to go to the dinner without me. I told him I was embarrassed he thought I'd put a dinner before my sister's health. That led to another week of tension before we finally sat down and worked things out, or so I thought. 8 weeks ago, Kay got her corneal graft, and so far everything's gone well. Last Saturday, R's brother was in town, so we went out to dinner with his family. R's family asked how Kay was doing, and I showed them a picture of the stitches in her eye. I thought everything went fine until we got home, when R got angry, saying I shouldn't have mentioned Kay's health issues or shown the photo. I argued that they'd asked about her and wanted to see the picture. In the end, he told me I needed to put him and his family before Kay, or our relationship wouldn't work. He told me his family would come first once we were married, so I should get used to it. I went upstairs, packed a bag, and now I'm staying at my mom's. Since I left, R has been bombarding me with texts and calls. I love him, but I will never put his family above the health of my own. I feel like he expects me to spend every holiday with his family and put his family's wishes ahead of my own family's needs, which isn't going to happen. I'm very close to my sister and my mom, that's not going to change. So I honestly don't know how to move forward or if I even want to. Has anyone else experienced something similar? If so, how did you handle it? Edit, for some reason, it won't let me make a full update post, not even on my own page. So I'll add it here. Hi, thank you so much to everyone who commented. I replied to as many as I could, but I read all of them. Warning, this is going to be longer than the original post. A lot has happened. Summary for those who just want a quick update. I broke up with him, and he's no longer in my house. His mother is very upset with him, and his brother has no contact with him for the foreseeable future. For those who want the longer version. Once I decided to end things with him, I knew the main problem would be getting him out of my house. I'm the homeowner. My grandmother died 5 years ago and left her house to my mom, who sold it and split the money between my sister and me. I bought my house with that money about a year after her death. The day after I wrote my original post, I got in touch with a friend of my stepdad's who is a landlord, and he put me in contact with his lawyer. The lawyer didn't have time to see me in person that day, but we had a phone call where he explained the options available to me. In the UK, we have something called a Section 8 notice. This is a 14-day eviction notice. The lawyer said that would be the fastest way to do it, though my ex could try to contest it if he wanted to, which would mean going to court and could take months. I asked him to draft the notice and date it for Friday. The next day, I had already decided to break up with him after work on Friday, so he'd have the weekend to process his emotions before Monday. Friday morning, I texted R and asked him to meet me at the local pub after work. He agreed quickly, not just because the pub is a public space, but because my stepdad and some of his co-workers go there every Friday after work for a pint. I knew he'd be there to step in if needed. Thanks for that suggestion, Reddit users. I also picked up the eviction notice during my lunch break, so I was ready to hand it over. It cost me £250, but it was worth it. When I arrived at the pub, R was already there, and my stepdad was at the bar with his co-workers. I sat down with R and got straight to the point. I told him it was over, I couldn't be with someone who didn't support me during one of the scariest moments of my life, and who expected me to abandon my family for his. I said it didn't matter what excuses he had, I wasn't interested. My mind was made up, and it was done. He stared at me in shock for what felt like hours, probably just a minute or so, before saying I couldn't be serious, that we'd been together 7 years and I was throwing it all away, that I'd never find another guy like him. I replied to that last part with, I don't want a guy like you, that's why I'm ending it. I need someone who supports me when things get hard, not someone who gets upset because the world doesn't bend to his will. I then handed him an envelope with the eviction notice and my engagement ring. I told him I was giving him a few weeks to find somewhere else to live and get out of my house. Then I got up and went to my stepdad, who bought me a much-needed drink, and I stayed with him until my ex left, looking stunned. I knew he wouldn't approach while I was with my stepdad, he's always been a bit intimidated by him. This is obviously a condensed version of what happened. When I got back to my mom's house, I had one message from him saying he wasn't moving out and would fight the eviction until I came to my senses and got back together with him. We're not done is how the message ended. I simply turned off my phone and decided to deal with the legal stuff on Monday, nothing else I could do at that point. Saturday morning, I woke up, turned my phone back on, and there was another message from him saying he'd move out if I paid him £10,000, since that's what he had supposedly spent on bills while living in my house. He paid half the electricity, gas, Wi-Fi, and the Sky package, and for the record, the Sky package is so expensive only because he had to have every sports channel known to man, so his share was basically just paying for sports channels. I had already asked the lawyer about this, and he assured me I owed him nothing, since he hadn't contributed to the mortgage or any renovations, only general living expenses. And I also knew I didn't just have £10,000 lying around. Let's just say this annoyed me, and I decided to call his mother to see if she could talk some sense into him. I'll call her S for simplicity. She was horrified when I told her, and said she'd speak to him. An hour later, she called me back and asked me to meet her at the house. R was out watching his football team and wouldn't be back until 10 p.m. So I knew he wouldn't be there. I met her at the house with Kay, and she told me that R's brother was on his way back home and that they would have R out by the following afternoon. She hadn't even spoken to R, only to his brother, but she promised me he'd be gone. She then asked me to walk with her through the house to show her exactly what was his and what wasn't, so he wouldn't take anything that didn't belong to him. The next morning, I got a message from her calling me every name under the sun for involving his mother and brother. I blocked him. A couple of hours later, S texted me to let me know he was gone and staying with her. I thanked her, and she said she'd like to keep in touch. I gladly agreed. When I got back to my house after work on Monday, I changed the alarm code, and my stepdad changed all the locks for me. My stepdad is also arranging for a friend of his to install exterior cameras at the house, which will be done over the weekend. S called me on Tuesday to ask if we could meet up because she had some things she wanted to tell me. We met for lunch that day, and that's when she told me her ex was a controlling, selfish man, and that selfishness was what she'd seen in R for a long time. That's why she'd once commented that R was like his father, but she'd hoped that would be the only thing R inherited from him, and that he wouldn't take on his father's controlling behavior. To be fair, he hadn't, not until this whole episode. She left R's father after he punched R's brother in the face when the brother was 14 and R was 10. He had never laid a hand on her or their kids before, but once was enough, and she left with the children. As far as she knew, her ex had never tried to contact R or his brother, and they hadn't spoken to their father in years. I had no idea about any of this. All I'd ever been told was that R's father wasn't in his life and hadn't been for a long time. S thought I already knew, which was why she hadn't told me sooner. However, she'd found out on Sunday night that R had gotten back in contact with his father, and had been in contact for the past year. His father had been filling his head with all kinds of ideas about how he's the man of the house and his family is all that matters. This had fueled R's selfish tendencies and amplified them tenfold. S told him to find somewhere else to live as soon as possible because she couldn't even look him in the face. Then R and his brother had a huge fight that ended with his brother saying that as long as R stayed in contact with their father, he would have no contact with him. He even told R to spend Christmas with their father because S would be at his house and R wasn't welcome. When S sided with R's brother on this, R exploded and said he was moving in with his father. Then he left, but came back a couple of hours later looking like he'd been crying. Turns out, his father didn't want him living there and basically told him he could be out on the street for all he cared. He wasn't going to put a roof over a grown man's head. S believes R is now starting to realize everything he's lost by listening to his father, and he's seeing his father's true colors. She's incredibly disappointed in him, but he's still her son, so she's trying to be there for him as best she can, although she still wants him out, since she doesn't trust him. His brother continues to have nothing to do with him. S has also told him to stay away from me because I don't need to be involved in this, and he's promised her he will. Only time will tell if that's true, but I've got him blocked on everything, and if he shows up at my house, I'll just call the police to have him removed. The more S told me about what had been going on behind my back, the more determined I felt to never have anything to do with him again. I never want to see him again if I can help it. In short, R's life is a mess, but as long as he stays away from me, I don't care. I've spent a lot of time with my sister and her wife, as well as my mom and stepdad, which has been great. I've never been this close to my stepdad before, but this whole thing has brought us much closer, which has been a big silver lining. I'm not exactly happy right now, but I'll get there. There are still a lot of feelings I need to process, and it'll take time to get over this whole situation. I don't think I'll be dating anyone for a good while. I really need to move past all of this, and I don't want to dump it on anyone else right now. For everyone asking how Kay is, she's doing great. She had a hospital appointment on Monday, and her consultant said her eye is healing, in his words, beautifully, which is a huge relief. Thanks to everyone who reached out to me. Hopefully, there won't be any need for another update. Updates. So, this should be my last update. Update 1. Today I posted in the relationships advice forum about my now ex. The original post and the update are on my profile. I hadn't heard anything from R in weeks, but yesterday he showed up at my house. I had the door chain on, so I opened it with that still latched. There was no way I was letting him in. Basically, he told me he had nowhere to live. His mother wasn't speaking to him, and his father isn't going to put a roof over the head of a grown man, his words, not mine. He asked if I would take him back, or at least let him live with me. There was absolutely no way I'd take him back, and the only reason getting him out of my house the first time was easy was because his mother stepped in to help. He'd threatened to take me to court, knowing that if he did, it might take me ages to get him out, and then said he would only leave if I gave him £10,000. I contacted his mother, who was furious about that, and she showed up with his brother to kick him out. I told her there was absolutely no chance he would live with me again and that we were 100% done. He started shouting at me and calling me every name in the book, so I threatened to call the police if he didn't leave and then shut the door. I have cameras all over my house, so I recorded everything he did and said, and I saved it on a USB just in case. Then he went crying to all our mutual friends, and word got back to his mother. She called me and asked what happened, so I told her, and then she told me she'd put her house up for sale and was moving 500 kilometers away to be closer to her other son. She and I had a huge argument about it, and she ended up kicking him out of her house. Since then, he's been couch hopping, but with Christmas coming up, his friends aren't too happy about having him stay when they've got kids and want to enjoy the festive season. He's been kicked out of 3 friends' houses in 10 days. She told me I was right to turn him down, but since then, some other friends have said they feel sorry for him and that I could let him stay in my guest room until he got back on his feet. I told them to take him in themselves, but they said they didn't have space, and that if they had a spare room like I do, they would let him stay. My family and his are on my side, but I'm starting to doubt myself because of what a couple of my friends have said. So, Reddit, am I the bad one here? Edit, just a quick edit before I go to sleep. I just spoke to the wife of one of ours friends, and she's asked to meet me during my lunch break tomorrow. Apparently, I stayed with them for 2 nights before she kicked him out, and there's more going on than I know. She's going to tell me the whole story tomorrow, but she told me I should not let him anywhere near me, and that right now, he's staying in a hotel, so at least he has a roof over his head. I'll try to update after I speak to her. Update Part 2. Yesterday I posted about my ex showing up at my house asking to move back in with me. I said no, but a couple of friends thought I should let him stay, which made me doubt myself. R is my ex. Some people told me to change the locks, etc., which I did, and I also changed the alarm code. My stepdad also had a friend of his install 4 cameras around my house. I'm also going to start locking the front gate so no one can get near the house without ringing the bell first. I mentioned in an edit that I was going to meet one of ours friends' wives for lunch today, and I have to say, it was definitely informative. I'll call her N, 30F, and her husband Z, 29M. So, I met her during my lunch break at a cafe near my work. It's a place a lot of my coworkers go, and I know the staff there as well. Some Reddit users thought she might bring R, so I wanted it to be somewhere I felt comfortable and had backup if necessary. Turns out, I didn't need to worry about that. When I arrived and was alone, I ordered something to eat and a drink, then sat down with her. We started with the usual small talk before she began telling me what had been going on. R had called Z on Thursday morning, saying he had nowhere to go and asking if he could stay with them for a few days. Z spoke with N, and they decided he could stay in the guest room. R went to their house after work, and they had a long conversation in which R told them he had an apartment lined up but couldn't move in until January. Z and N agreed to let him stay until January as long as he followed some basic rules and paid for his own food. The rules were things like, no bringing women to the house, and if he went out drinking, he needed to be quiet when coming back so as not to wake their 6-year-old daughter. R agreed to all this and even paid for Chinese food for them that night. The next day, after work, R went to meet his father at the pub for a few beers. When Z and N went to bed, R still wasn't home. They woke up around 2 in the morning to R arguing with a woman. Apparently, R had met this woman at a bar, brought her back to Z and N's house, had sex with her, and then told her to get dressed and leave once he was finished. She got angry, which led to an argument in which R said horrible things to her. N came downstairs to accompany the woman and call her a taxi, while Z stayed upstairs arguing with R. Once N got the woman to leave, she went back upstairs and tried to calm Z and R down. That's when R decided to take out his frustration on N, calling her AB*TCH and telling her to do something useful, like make him a sandwich, before bursting out laughing like he'd just told the funniest joke in the world. That was the last straw for Z. He lost his temper and shoved R against the wall by the throat. Note, R is not a fighter at all, while Z was an amateur boxer in his youth and knows how to defend himself. N managed to get Z to let him go, and R was pushed into the guest room to sleep it off. It's a miracle that N's daughter didn't wake up during all this. The next morning, N got her daughter ready and left for her mother's house after telling Z to get her out of the house. Z agreed, and once N left, he woke R up and told him to pack his things and leave. R tried to apologize and begged to stay, but Z refused and kicked him out. From the timing, I think R left there and came straight to my house on Sunday. Z later texted R to meet up and talk, so they met at a pub. Z has been friends with R since they were 11, and he said he's never seen him act the way he's been acting lately. He wanted to know what was really going on. Eventually, Z got R to admit the truth. R has been in contact with his father far longer than he told us, more than 2 years now. R's father is a raging misogynist who believes a woman's place is in the kitchen and the bedroom, and that a man's place is to rule the home and be waited on hand and foot, including deciding who can and cannot be in their lives. He's been pouring this poison into R's head, and it's really gotten to him. Z told N that he doesn't even recognize R anymore. R now wants to live his life exactly the way his father has told him to. When Z pointed out that his father is 62 years old, lives in a rundown one-bedroom flat, hasn't had a real relationship since R's mother left him, has no friends, no family who speaks to him, and is the kind of person who makes people finish their pint and leave when he walks into a pub, R got furious. He told Z that his father is just misunderstood. Z replied that people understood his father perfectly well, that's why they avoided him, because he's toxic. That pretty much ended their conversation, and R left. Z found out that R really does have a flat reserved for January, that part was true, and that he's found a hotel where he can stay until then for a minimal cost. Z and N have decided to cut all contact with R because they don't want that toxicity anywhere near them, especially their daughter. Some Reddit users suggested R might be on drugs, so I asked N what she thought. She doesn't believe so, but she can't be sure. She and Z believe R is so under his father's influence that he's completely changed as a person. He believes everything his father says is the truth. N also told me that R has a secondary Instagram account to spy on me, and he's been using it to view my posts. I immediately set my account to private. He'd mentioned something about watching me waste money on an absurd number of Christmas presents when I couldn't even help him on Sunday. I had gone to a Christmas market on Saturday afternoon and posted photos on Instagram. All of this only strengthened my decision that he is never coming near my house again. It also made me realize that I no longer feel anything for him, other than frustration over his behavior and some sadness over how far he's fallen from the person I used to know. I thought hearing he'd had another woman in his bed might upset me, but I didn't feel anything. I honestly didn't care. I thanked N for the information, and we agreed to stay in touch. We won't be as close as we were when I was with R, but it feels good to have someone who knows the whole situation and has seen R's behavior firsthand. Some Reddit users also told me I should distance myself from the friends who suggested I let him stay with me. Unfortunately, I can't cut them out completely because they're part of the wider friend group, and that would only cause unnecessary drama. But I will keep my distance and only talk to them when we're in group settings. Right now, I'm at my sister's house, and we're about to watch a Christmas movie to get in the mood for decorating all our houses this weekend. So I'll be online intermittently over the next few hours if anyone has any questions. Thanks for the votes and for giving me perspective. Reddit isn't all bad. Update 3. There are still people reaching out to check if I'm okay. Some hated that I only used initials, so R is Rob. I honestly hoped I wouldn't have to update again, but I just got a call from one of Rob's friends. It seems he's going to be spending Christmas in prison. Apparently, he went out on Saturday night with his father, and they got into an argument that turned physical. Rob isn't a fighter, but he's bigger and stronger than his father, and it ended with his father falling backwards and hitting his head on a wall, knocking him unconscious. The pub staff called the police and an ambulance, but Rob left before they arrived. Rob's father had to be taken to the hospital, where he still is. I'm not sure of his exact injuries, but they're not life-threatening. Rob must be awake, though, because he's pressing charges against Rob. However, they won't keep him in custody unless it's absolutely necessary at this time of year. Rob was arrested on Sunday morning at the hotel where he was staying and had to appear in magistrate's court on Monday. Because he doesn't have a fixed address right now, and with his father still in the hospital, he's been remanded in custody under a Section 18 with intent charge. Unless he can find a permanent address to go to, he won't be released until his trial in Crown Court. I know his mom is already at his brother's place, over 400 kilometers away, so I don't think she can help. Honestly, hearing this has given me a real sense of peace. I've been trying to ignore him, but the thought of him showing up and ruining Christmas has been at the back of my mind since he appeared at my house. I hope he stays there through Christmas so I can relax. Update 4. I went to Nat and Zach's, N&Z, house to drop off a gift for their daughter, plus a bottle of bells for Zach and a bottle of Prosecco for Nat for Christmas. We had a cup of tea while they caught me up on what's going on. Rob will be in prison over Christmas, but he'll probably be out in early January. His solicitor is trying to get the charges reduced from Section 18 with intent to a Section 20. Today I learned that Section 18 with intent is just one step below attempted murder, and if found guilty, you could be in prison for many years. Section 20 is much less serious and usually carries a 2-year suspended sentence for first-time offenders, which he is. His solicitor has said that if he pleads guilty to Section 20, the prosecution will drop the charges so it can be resolved as quickly as possible, since the UK courts are extremely backlogged right now and the prisons are full. Zach went to the hotel where Rob had been staying and collected his things, which are now in his garage, as one last favor to Rob, in Zach's words. While he's locked up, Rob can't contact me without my consent. The prison literally has to call me and ask if it's okay to add him to my approved call list, and only then could he call me. That's not going to happen. I've also spoken to his mom, who has basically washed her hands of him for now. She thinks he needs to learn his lesson, and maybe spending Christmas in a cell will teach him how far off the rails he's gone. She's spoken to him, and she says he's now saying the right things, but only time will tell if he means it. Rob has been talking about moving closer to his brother to get away from his father, so maybe he's seen the light. But his brother has refused to be on his approved call list, so Rob can't contact him. I don't know how that's going to work. As for his father, he's still in the hospital with a broken hip and had to have surgery to repair it. The hip fracture and head injury are why the charges are so high right now. I feel like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders knowing he can't ruin my Christmas. I'm about to pack the car and go stay with my mum until the 2nd of January, but I wanted to end the year by letting everyone who has helped and supported me through this know what's going on. Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates, and I hope you're all doing well. Update 5. Hi everyone, sorry I haven't updated sooner, but I wanted to wait until everything was over before doing so. Rob spent Christmas in remand. He didn't get out until the 2nd week of January, and that was only because his mum agreed to let him stay with her again. He had his plea hearing in the 1st week of February, where he pled guilty to a Section 20 assault. Then he had to wait until last week to be given a sentencing date. I didn't realize how much work actually goes into sentencing. They had to get a victim impact statement, a pre-sentence report from probation, statements from his mother and brother. Even his solicitor contacted me for a statement saying that we had broken up and that I had asked him to leave the house. He used our breakup as a mitigating circumstance, saying that the end of our relationship and losing his home had seriously affected his mental health. His mother's and brother's statements also confirmed that he had lived in an abusive household when he was young, so he claimed to have PTSD because of it. All of this was read out at sentencing. He was going to get 3 years, but the judge reduced the sentence because he pled guilty and due to the mitigating circumstances. That left him with a 16-month sentence, suspended for 18 months. As part of his release conditions, he can't go near his father, he has to go to therapy for his alleged PTSD, and he isn't allowed to drink alcohol. He even has an ankle monitor that tests his sweat every half hour for alcohol and alerts probation if it's positive. Fortunately for him, his boss has allowed him to work at the company's head office, which is half an hour from here, and probation agreed he could live there as well. This week he moved into a flat there, so I don't have to worry about running into him. I haven't spoken to him at all, and I don't want to. He's tried to get in touch through a couple of friends, but they've respected my decision and told him to move on with his life. However, I spoke to his mother yesterday, and she said she thinks he's depressed, but so far he's fine. She's the one who's given me all this information. It's a strange mix of emotions toward him. I still care on some level, but not enough to keep him in my life. I know I have to keep him away from me because I'll never be able to see him the way I did this time last year. It's crazy to think it's only been a year since we got engaged. So much has happened. Aside from those mixed emotions, I'm fine. I've been spending a lot more time with my sister and her wife, as well as catching up with friends. I still work in the same place, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. For those asking about my sister, she's doing well. She had a setback last month, but she seems to have gotten over it now and has just been approved for a new stem cell treatment at the largest eye hospital in the UK. Such good news. She tried to explain it to me, but it involves taking her blood and putting it in her eye, which grossed me out, so I asked her to stop talking about it. Of course, because she's my sister, she then sent me pictures of what they do, and my mom had to step in and tell her to stop. No matter how old we get, I think we'll never stop trying to annoy each other. In short, I think we're all moving on with our lives. Unless something major happens, this should be my last post. I really want to thank everyone for your kind words and support. This has restored my faith that there are still good people out there. Update 6. Hi everyone, I honestly hoped I wouldn't have to come back, but I've received several DMs on this account saying there's a TikTok video claiming I've gotten back with my ex. No. I don't have TikTok, so I haven't seen it, but that is absolutely not true. I haven't seen or spoken to him since my last update. As far as I know, he still lives in the city half an hour from here and is fine. I'm really not interested, to be honest. Rob's mom has accepted an offer on her house and moved in with his brother until she can finalize her house sale and find a flat she likes. Everyone else is fine, my sister's doing well, and her eye is still healing. She's got new glasses and says her vision is almost back to normal now, so that's a good thing. My sister and 7 other family members and friends went to Germany for England's first match, which was a lot of fun. Other than that, I've just been working and finding my new rhythm. Please don't believe anything said about this on TikTok, YouTube, or anywhere else. I'm not getting back with Rob. That ship has sailed and fallen off a cliff. Hope everyone's doing well. Update 7. So, I bought a new phone and completely forgot about this account. I came back because I ran into Rob a couple of hours ago and it reminded me. When I logged in, I saw messages saying Rob has posted his version of the story here. No, that's not true. He doesn't have Reddit. He hates all kinds of social media. He has Instagram, but that's it, and he hardly ever uses it. So whoever posted something claiming it was him is lying. As for Rob, he still lives in a nearby city and only came over to visit some friends. Today we had a brief hi and bye conversation, that's it. I've been dating someone for the past 6 months, and things are going slowly but great so far. I'm not sure how Rob is doing, but he seemed fine. That's all. I just wanted to clear up the rubbish about the ex story I've been getting messages about. I haven't read it since I don't know where to find it, but apparently it's on TikTok, which I don't have. Edit, I also just read a DM saying I was lying about my sister's emergency surgery because it wouldn't be possible for her to have surgery at 5:30 and be home by 9. To clarify, the surgery was done with local anesthetic. It took them less than 15 minutes to cut the damaged cornea and then seal the hole with glue. Then they re-inflated the eye and placed a bandage lens over it. They kept her until around 7:15 or so to make sure the glue was working, and then they let her go home. She had to go back to the local hospital the next morning at 9 a.m. to make sure her eye wasn't leaking and was still inflated. Her wife took her to that appointment. There's a major shortage of hospital beds in the UK, so unless it's absolutely necessary to keep you in, they send you home as quickly as possible. If I knew how to attach a photo, I'd put one here of her zombie eye.